Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the United
States
States
of America
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
One
nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, liberty and
with
justice
liberty,
for all.
justice for all.
Sharon Hamilton will give our invocation today. Sharon?
Hi, Kevin. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. I am going to be reading a prayer for Martin Luther King that was in our monthly newsletter for my church. So let us pray. Oh God, our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for your command to love. Grant that we will love Thee with all of our hearts, souls, and minds, and love our neighbors as we love ourselves, even our enemy neighbors. And we ask Thee, O God, in these days of emotional tension, when the problems of the world are gigantic in extent and chaotic in detail, to be with us in our going out and our coming in our rising up and in our lying down, in our moments of joy and in our moments of sorrow, until the day when there shall be no sunset and no dawning. Amen.
And I think it's only appropriate that we also take a moment and just a moment of silence for the three individuals who were found in the wreckage this morning. If you would bow your heads. Thank you. I'm sure their families will be needing all the support they can get at this time. With that, visiting Rotarians and guests, but I'm not seeing my full screen, so if we have any visiting Rotarians, if you would announce yourself.
Hi, Bob Anderson.
Hi, Bob. Any other visitors? Very good.
Considered a visitor?
So welcome today, Bob, and we're going to repeat our four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Better friendships?
Is it building better friendships?
Friendships.
Will it be beneficial
To all
To
concerned?
all.
Announcements. Sherry, you have an announcement.
Okay. Yes, I do. I actually have a youth exchange announcement. They have, I think I told everybody before that they were offering last year's long-term students to go, hopefully, if they have the program, next year. So they were invited to update their applications. They've now also opened it up to the short-term exchange kids that were approved last year. And as you may recall, we had 3 short-term exchange students that had been approved last year. 2 of them are interested. We have 1 spot, so we're going to do some interviews on Thursday. So the Youth Exchange Committee is going to be doing interviews for the 2021-22 year on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. That's going to be a Zoom call. We should be done by 8:30, 8:45. I believe I've spoken with everybody via email that's on the committee, but if you need some more information, let me know. I'll be sending out the Zoom link later today or possibly tomorrow, but I'm hoping to do it later today. And if you aren't on the Youth Services Committee, but you would like to be, please either drop me a DM here or email me. I would love to add you to our group.
Sherry, can you please repeat who is, I don't understand, last year's students?
We had 2, so Sophia Kennelly, who was approved for long-term last year, is automatically eligible for the long-term program next year. We did have 3 short-term students, they call it STEP, S-T-E-P, students for last year, and 2 of them have expressed an interest to go on long-term exchange next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Hey, Sherry.
Yes.
Can I just throw something out there? I was going to send it to you in email, but I figured I could just share it on the Zoom.
Sure.
I was reading in the Rotary magazine this weekend, and what they've done with some of their former well, I'm sorry, what some other clubs have done with some of their former exchange students is invited them to the Zooms. So I wonder if like in the future we could have, just looking back with like Luna, a couple of the other people, maybe have them join one of our meeting Zooms and they can kind of give us an update of how they're doing.
That's a great idea.
Great
You know what?
idea.
I'm trying to get someone in for the last meeting in December to do, I'm trying to get Pat Kelly to do his presentation, but if he's not available, maybe I can see if I can get the students. So I will reach out to them, and I'll also talk to Becky to see what dates might be open. That's a great idea. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, you bet.
Kevin?
Yeah.
I got just a real quick question. I have been invited to speak to the AM Rotary Club on Wednesday. And what we're going to be talking about is the Literacy Committee's project to put books into the stockings for all 300 kids that love school, if that works out. And Diane, I haven't heard from Deb how that's working out yet. I'm just wondering if anybody knows anything about how that project at Love School is working out. I know it was kind of on pause because of COVID.
Yeah, Deb had mentioned she was going to be talking to somebody last Thursday, but I haven't heard anything either.
And she's out of town, so.
I'm sure
but
she'll update us.
All right. Well, this will be the first time. They have mentioned a couple times they would like to partner with us in some of our projects, even some of our international projects. So I know that's a really small club, right? How many people are in that morning club?
It is small, but it's very dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be doing their Zoom meeting on Wednesday. So, all right.
Thank you.
Well, we'll just wait to hear. If you hear anything from Deb, would you have her call me or something like that?
Absolutely.
Great.
Hey,
Thanks.
David, would you send me the Zoom attachment for that?
Yeah, sure. I'll do so.
Thank you.
I couldn't get it.
Let's see. So we're going to recognize Rotary
Finally
Yurt
there.
reporter Sue Jones today. Thank you
Like
for
to go online,
keeping
so
us
I'm
moving.
gonna just use my phone.
Who's talking?
Who's this guy?
Kevin Saxby.
I think,
Looks like a very good one, Rachel.
Mag?
Meg, you're unmuted.
Okay.
Let's see. Any other committee chair announcements? Seeing none. Invocation and song. Committee Chair Kathy Benson needs some of your volunteers to lead invocations next week. December 7th and 21st, if you can lead, please let Joni or Kathy Benson know. The Rotary Countywide Blood Drive was this past Wednesday. David and Marissa and Melissa Myers were our volunteers. Thank you, guys. Do you have a report on that?
Melissa, you want to talk?
I don't have a report on it, Dave. You want to go ahead and speak to it?
Well, I think
It was bloody.
I think all of us were there, and we temped everybody, and we had a nice computer program to make sure that everybody that went there was in the loop, and Melissa made sure that everybody got cookies.
Melissa made sure that we all knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
Heck, I went at the wrong time. I donated blood. I was there early,
Oh, okay.
and I got a nice T-shirt.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
got those too, and it was I thought it was real busy. I thought they had a good turnout. It
Excellent.
was good, successful.
Well, thank you for doing that. Chris Anderson and Sue and Greg Jones attended a meeting about sprucing up our Rotary webpage. Anything you want to share with the group on that?
Great fun, fantastic. No, honestly, a really, really productive meeting. The young lady is, I think, fantastic. Don't you, Chris?
Yeah, she's so good that she's already updated the website.
Yeah.
So if everybody goes to the website, check it out.
And we're working on coming up with some more high resolution photos. Not all of our pictures in the past have been high resolution, and she needs that to use them on the website. So we're going back through hundreds of pictures trying to find something that's indicative of all that we do in the club. But we're going to meet with her on Friday for more ideas and chats. And if anybody has anything on their mind, please get the information to us before Friday noon.
I can't mute it.
Yeah, but please, if you can, go check out the website and let us know what you think.
I appreciate your work on that that project. Done websites in the past myself, and they are a huge undertaking. So kudos. Remembering to support the club through this difficult time by sending your meeting donation, even $5 a week. You know, we're not meeting at our regular location and having to pay for lunch. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that donation, we'd appreciate it. Sherry, I've got you on the list for another announcement regarding the November 19th mixer.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm on the list because I forgot to say anything about it. Yeah, we're hoping to have a mixer on actually, we're planning on having a mixer on November 19th. Hopefully I'll have a little more to announce about it, but I will send out a Zoom link for that this week. We'd love to have you there. We had a great time last time, those of us that were there, and we'd like to have more if we can. So that'll be November 19th, and we'll start at the same time we started before, which was
7.
Oh, was it 7?
Yep.
So you have time to get your dinner and get your dessert and join us, or your drink, or after dinner drink, or whatever. So I'm going to send that out. It would be nice to hear from people who think that they can come. So when I send out the link, if you could respond, that'd be great. Then I'll have some idea of how many to expect. So.
To talk about is a Zoom mixer.
It's a Zoom mixer. Yeah, I wish it was in person, but it's not. It is a Zoom mixer.
Excellent. Details are just starting, but just a heads up, we're looking at in December instead of our usual holiday party, working with one of our local wineries to do an online holiday gathering, a little wine tasting. And anyway, keep an eye out for the details on that. Any other announcements? Anything anyone wants to chime in on? Going once, going twice.
You got me down for birthdays?
Would I forget your birthday?
I know.
Kicking off the snowy November day, Susan's gonna warm us up and make it happy here with birthday wishes.
We may have to do this all by ourselves. Well, I will remind you all that November is Rotary Foundation Month. The Rotary Foundation transforms your gifts into service projects that change the lives both close to home and around the world. The mission of the Rotary Foundation, the International Rotary Foundation, is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. It has grown from an initial contribution of $26.50 to more than $1 billion US. It has one of the largest and most prestigious international fellowship programs in the world. When you give to the Rotary Foundation, you are directly supporting Rotary's work. Your gift makes our service projects that eradicate polio, promote peace, and develop communities happen. This is your foundation, folks. And today we are celebrating our November birthdays, all of which there are 2. 1, Deb Kathleen, and 2, Mike Roberts. Is anybody with us? No. Well, I will tell you that Deb Kathleen's birthday is tomorrow, wherever she is, and she's probably off celebrating. Deb is a retired executive director of Striders. She is a graduate of Mercyhurst College. Her daddy, Doug Benson, was her sponsor originally. She has been a longtime supporter of the Rotary Foundation through the Paul Harris Sustaining Club, and she has 2 Paul Harris Fellows. And Mike Roberts, you all know, his birthday's coming up on the 23rd. He is the president of Allied Alarm Services. He attended Wright State University. He too is a Paul Harris Sustaining Club member. He has 3 Paul Harris Awards, and he is a past president in 2000, 2001, and his sponsor was Harry Nicholson. Now, I am not going to hurt our ears by singing happy birthday to them because they won't be able to hear it. But I will say that we can all wish our happy birthday happy birthday to our November pumpkins. And the spouse in my room here has drawn Mike Roberts' name for a free lunch. So thank you very much. And next month, December, we have a plethora of birthdays coming. Thank you.
To be around for a while.
Well, with no other business at hand, Becky Robbins will introduce our speaker, and Dennis, I'm going to turn the host over to you while she gives the introduction.
I'll be here all day long, but I can't speak up because I can't mute it.
I guess Mag can't mute. I'm pleased to promote or produce Dennis Webster today. As we all know, he's a radio announcer at WJTN. He's a Jamestown native and a graduate of Syracuse University and SUNY Fredonia. He started his work at the radio station here while still a student at Jamestown High School, and he's held many positions at the station, both on and off the air. For the past couple of decades, he's presented the morning program on WJTN from 5 to 9 in the morning and hosted the Saturday Breakfast Party and the High School Bowl, both now on pause because of the coronavirus. Dennis has a wide variety of community interests and regularly presents stories on everything from farmers' crops to the events at the Robert H. Jackson Center. Some of his favorite activities to cover involve theater, Jamestown High School music, and Chautauqua County 4-H. Through his many years of work, Dennis has cultivated a keen sense of Jamestown as a community and the media's role in it. He also has developed a speech improvement course primarily for aspiring young people, but available to anybody for $12.40 a lesson. And I assume we could reach him at the radio station about that. Dennis, are you ready?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you on this Zoom meeting today. For those of you who know me, and I recognize a number of the names on the screens, I will try to provide some information and hopefully some laughs or at least some amusement to you, and some stories that you may not have heard before, even though I've told a lot of people a lot of things about radio over the years. I do want to begin with this note, though. Thank you to all the businesses and organizations represented in this Rotary group today that have continued to advertise on our Media One stations during this pandemic. We are, as a radio station, entirely dependent on advertising for our revenue. Just like every business in the community, we have been challenged in this time to find the means to keep going, and we appreciate your support all the time, and particularly at this time. I want to begin by talking about Election Day tomorrow, because whenever this time of the year comes around, I recall some of my first election days when I was a young employee at WJTN, and it was kind of all hands on deck for elections at that time. My first assignment was in Mayville, in the basement of what eventually became the Gerasi office building, to report from the Board of Elections there. And at that time, the elections commissioners in Chautauqua County were George Kakamas and Dan Larson. Some of you longtime members of the Rotary may remember them. And I have a very clear vision in my mind today of a cart, sort of like one that you would use at Home Depot to haul all your stuff out to your car, and an elevator door opening as I went to set up our broadcast in the basement of the Gerasi office building the day before the election, so the Monday before in one of those years. And Dan Larson, a very tall, lean elections commissioner, exits the elevator with this heaped cart of adding machines. Do you remember the plug-in kind that used to have paper on them? Maybe some people still use them. Just every adding machine you could find in the county office building on that cart. And they would set that up in rooms, and then people called in the election results from the different voting places all around Chautauqua County. And then people would take the information by hand and write it on what looked like a ballot. And then that would get moved all the way around the room. And at every one of those, I don't know, 40 adding machines, somebody would add in a total of how many votes there were from that particular station. And that's how we got the returns. It was a very, very disorganized sort of chaos. People looking over each other all the time, if people trying to add exactly the right numbers on the adding machine to keep the totals right. My responsibility was the towns. We had a lot of town elections in those times. And I finally ended up, the radio station bought me a hand calculator because nobody calculated those. So I'd be up there frantically on election night trying to add 6 and 7 so that I could get the results to broadcast on the air. And I remember saying to Joseph Gerasi, who was the county executive around that time, wouldn't it be nice if we could have some system whereby we didn't have to do that anymore, that we could just use technology to get it all tabulated for us. And eventually that came to be sometime after Joe Gerasi's term as the chief executive of Chautauqua County. But folks, Chautauqua is where all of us will go tomorrow to get those election results. But it did come to pass exactly as I hoped that it would. Now, I want to tell you that the Rotary Club got me into a lot of trouble as a young announcer at WJTN. This is a picture, if you can see it all can see it, of Carl Willems, J. Carl Willems, who was the general manager of the radio station at the time that I started there. He was sort of a stern man. You didn't want to fool around too much with Carl. He was a member of your club, and as you have for time immemorial, met at noon on Mondays. One of my responsibilities as a young man at the radio station was to read the 6 and 11 o'clock newscasts on Saturday and Sunday. So it was not really prime time, but I was kind of low man on the totem pole, so I had that job. And they were really quite well listened to. You know, the news headlines were not as easily available in that era as they might be today. And so nobody from the radio station heard it on a particular Sunday night, the morning, the night before the Rotary meeting. But you may remember Mark Spitz, who was the famed swimmer, Olympic swimmer. And there was a story on The Wire that I read that night. He had chosen his bride from a modeling catalog. And something about that tickled me. And, you know, it's infectious. Once you get to laughing in the midst of a newscast, you're fundamentally dead. And I just could not stop laughing. And I laughed my way through the entire remainder of the newscast. And it ran for the better part of 15 minutes. So I must have laughed for 8-10 minutes trying to choke the laughter back as I read through all the other stories of the day. Nobody at the station heard it, but a member of your club did. And so the next day, noon, and Carl Willems always used to rush into the newsroom late in the 11 o'clock hour and grab some wire copy in the local news and rush down to your meeting and read it. And man, did they nail him for fines and everything else that time, because he had not heard it, but was surprised to hear that I had laughed my way through an entire newscast. And the program director of the radio station at that time gave me a very stern upbraiding the day before. So I'd just like to say thank you to all the members of the Rotary for the trouble that you caused me many years ago. This is the front door of our radio station, WJTN. I was showing it at the beginning. It's our facility out there on Orchard Road. I took this picture the other day. This is a very nice shot of it, but it's not nearly that pretty this morning. It's a windswept location on Orchard Road, just outside Jamestown. Now, the next picture that I want to show you is of a very small Subaru. And maybe you've never seen this before. It was one of the first Subarus sold in the United States. And Hal Martin, who was one of the announcers at the radio station at the time when I first started working there, had one of these things. It was very, very small. The wheelbase was about 80 inches and its weight was under 1,000 pounds. Hal kept his keys in what was a mailbox, just a box on the wall. And he always dropped his keys there so we know where they would be. And he was on the air one night, and I was a kid around there, and there was a couple of other guys came around there, and we had a brilliant idea. Actually, to be honest about it, I had a brilliant idea, and that was to take this car. It was a manual transmission, so we sneaked his keys out of the mailbox and got the thing in neutral and run it in the front doors of this radio station. And you know, there was 3 of us around, or 4 of us, and so it was not very hard to horse the thing around and get the doors open. We all held the doors open and rolled that thing into the radio station. And when Hal came and saw that his car was in the lobby of that building, I was in a lot of trouble with him at that time. I don't think he spoke to me for several days, and I will give you the sum of the experience this way. As a kid, an important lesson that I learned is it's a lot harder to get a car out of the lobby of a radio station than it ever is to get one into it. Some of you may recognize what I'm going to talk about next. One of the other things that fascinated me in my youth was the wire service teletype. they were ubiquitous in radio and television stations in that era, cranking out in print the latest national and world news and sports and bulletins and flashes and features. They were loud, typewriter-like devices. They used to claim that they would hammer out the news in 60 words a minute, but one of the old hands at UPI said they really could only do about 50. But United Press International, Associated Press, you could watch the whole world go by you just by watching that wire. And I used to go home and think to myself, I wish I could bring that wire with me, because there was nothing on radio or television that ever equaled what I could just see coming by my eyes with that device. Now, that wish did come true, because now, of course, we all have all of that flows to us every day, every moment. And I want to just be serious with you for a moment and take a look at this from a couple of perspectives. Those stories that I watched come down the UPI wire, our service at the time, were written and edited out of their offices in Chicago. And anything that was patently false or unfounded or too extreme would be examined very carefully and possibly not put out, or if so, done with great circumspection. What we got with this was not only the ability for all of us to carefully receive that prepared information, widely disseminated to anybody who had one of these in hand, but we also got the ability for anybody to disseminate information, often with the same appearance of credibility that that wire used to offer me as a youth, without the reporting and editing and scrutiny that went along with everything that was on the wire. This has created a firestorm of controversy in the world today. Something people think is great, that anybody, everybody can put something out there. They would fault the wires and the networks or newspapers, thinking they always got it wrong or always written from a particular point of view. And now everybody can blog or put something out there. Some businesses and organizations, many represented perhaps at this Rotary meeting today, think it's great to have that accessibility to reach all of their customers or all of the people that they would like to have as their customers through a website or emails or posts or other social media. Nobody to edit their message, nobody to limit their time, nobody to incorrectly get their message through the editorial desk and mess it up. There are many, many aspects of this scenario that are relevant and really need to be considered by all of us today. And if you'd like to bring up some of your own questions or issues when my speaking period is over here, I'd be happy to talk to you about them. But I will say two things. One, about those edited sources. They did then, and they still now, protect us from gross, wild, untenable falsehoods. Actions have consequences, and what really happened is key for us to know, delivered to us reliably from a source that we can trust. The other thing is this: the whole of journalism is a powerful backstop to democracy. We cannot make judgments about what elected officials are doing without someone there to keep track of it all for us. We cannot go to every town meeting. We cannot go to every session of Congress. The role of the fourth estate, even in the new world of social media, is still relevant and necessary. So I would ask you this, as somebody who's had a lot of experience in the traditional media over time, as you look at those things that you write for your own website or social medias or posts, if you would just ask yourself, is this true? Is this fair? And if you are taking a message that has come to you and you're about to retweet it or repost it or share it with somebody, does this have any goodwill in it? Is this beneficial to anybody? In other words, if you would be so kind as to apply something that you know very well to your social media interests and applications, I think we would all benefit by it a great deal. And again, I would be happy to discuss those things with you from a variety of perspectives when our question time comes. WJTN, to move quickly to another subject, is almost 100 years old. We began broadcasting December 27th, 1924. The station was founded by a local entrepreneur and innovator named Archie Newton. I never knew Newton, and I wish I had, but he died in 1961. He was 28 years old when he started radio station WOCL, almost on a fluke. From what I understand, he was hoping to get a temporary license to broadcast for a short period of time. He'd been a radio experimenter and had been testing a little station out of Jamestown for most of 1924. And he wanted to get on the air for a time to promote a new hotel that was opening downtown, the Hotel Jamestown. He got a full-time license instead and suddenly found himself in the radio business and valiantly tried to run his radio station, you know, through many difficult years, times like these or worse in the Great Depression. He moved his studios all over town. The transmitter was located in his basement in the 800 block of North Main Street. It was the Depression. The times were difficult. What I'm showing to you on the screen right now is from the Indiana Law Journal, Sports Broadcasting and the Law. It came to my attention a few years ago that thing that you probably heard on some sports broadcast yesterday, if you were listening to or watching any of them, was this broadcast is entirely the property of the Buffalo Bills or the New York Yankees or whomever. That started with Archie Newton. He was one of the key people in leading to the fact that had to be presented that way. What he did here, and if you look at your screen carefully, you can see this. For the 1934 World Series, he wanted to be able to broadcast one of the games, but he did not have the rights to, and apparently didn't have the money to buy the rights. So he set up a radio in the upstairs of his home listening to WGR in Buffalo, and then fed the signal down into earphones in his basement. And he fundamentally recreated the game as it was going on, as though he was there, and apparently used other sources to corroborate what he was putting on the air, access to a scoreboard somewhere or something like that. Now, remember, this is 1934. All of the ready access that we have to any information like that was completely unavailable at that time. People were dependent on radio to get things like the World Series. He got caught. Anyway, got caught. And he did get his license back in the next renewal, which I guess was the next year or so. But he subsequently sold the station to a group of people from Syracuse. And by 1949, he was working at Art Metal and had absolutely no interest in radio at all anymore. But every time you listen to that statement about who owns the broadcast, you can think of Archie Newton and the beginning of broadcasting in Jamestown. I want to give you at least three things today, three gifts that you'll probably wish I never gave you. And maybe I wish nobody had ever given me. But I'm sure you've heard people say things that you can't get out of your mind. So I'm going to give you three of them. This is a picture of Herb Mabon. He was for many, many years, and through much of the time that I worked at the radio station, an engineer, we called him. But his primary responsibility was to record things that people called in and queue up tapes and to just kind of do things in the background of the radio station. And every time Herb would conclude a recording with somebody on the telephone, he would say these words: "Okay, we got him. Okay, we got him." So that has become a catchphrase around the radio station and around our home over the years. Whenever anything is successfully completed, okay, we got him. So the next time that happens to you someplace, you can feel free, and I bet you'll even say that even if you don't want to. This is George Flieger. He was the program director of WJTN for many, many years. There was a beer that came out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Fort Pitt. And one of their advertising campaigns was to get announcers all over this region to announce the following phrase: "That's it, Fort Pitt," in any way that you want to. That's it, Fort Pitt. And it was a way to popularize the beer that they were selling. So it became, over time at WJTN, something that everybody seemed to say all the time. One person would say, "That's it." The other would say, "Fort Pitt." So the next time you're successfully concluding something at home and you or your spouse or somebody around you says, "That's it," then you can feel free not to say Fort Pitt. I'll give you one more, and then we'll just get out of the segment. This is Jack Dunnigan. He's an interesting story, and I could tell you more about it if I weren't already running out of time. But Jack was a famous country announcer. His wife, Gertrude, I think, had relatives in this area, his first wife, Gertrude. And so they came to settle here and were really quite popular for a long time, performing live country music on WJTN. And Jack would often grumble about things in a low tone of voice to those of us who were at the radio station. And one of his favorite quotes was from a Porter Wagner tune of a few years ago called, "I've enjoyed as much of this as I can stand." So if you are at any point in the future at a place where you have had enough of a particular person on Zoom or anything else, you can feel free to quote Jack Dunnigan, quoting Porter Wagner, saying, "I've enjoyed as much of this." Anyway, what you're looking at now is a poster that emerged from our archive several years ago. It was made around 1946, and it is titled "Radio as People." If you look closely, maybe you'll see some people that you may have heard of or known about through this address today, or others whose history was quite significant in the community. I put it up here only because we had about 35 people working at the radio station at that time. It's probably half that now at best, but this was a robust little business at one time, post-World War II and before the television era, and a lot of people found employment in our place. This is Cy Goldman. And I don't know that I could do anything about my life and career at WJTN without mentioning Cy. Cy was from Central New York and graduated from Syracuse University around 1935, just a year or so before Archie Newton sold his station in Jamestown to a group of people from Syracuse, WSYR there. And when they came to Jamestown, Cy came along with them. He was young and smart and ambitious, good looking, exceptionally personable, gregarious man, and an extraordinary problem solver. George Flieger, whom I mentioned as the program director at one time at the radio station, witnessed the following. There was somebody who was very angry at something we had done on the air decades ago. And he came with his lawyer to the radio station, and they confronted Cy. And Cy took the man into his office, left the lawyer out in the office, and they sat for 10 minutes. And when they were done, the man and Cy came out arm in arm, laughing, joking, telling stories about golf or some other subject that Cy was particularly interested in. And he just had a unique talent for diffusing those kinds of situations. He was instrumental in radio broadcasting in Jamestown from 1936 until his death in 1999. I learned a lot of things from Cy, but I'll share two quickly with you before I completely run out of time here today. One, he always used to say this about the radio station, and even in these times in which the media have changed so much, he talked about WJTN being a mirror of the community in terms of all of the things that we were and were not and were aspiring to be. And that has been a powerful inspiration for everything that I have tried to do in my maturity at the radio station after I got done moving cars into the lobby and all of that. And the other thing that was most valuable to me is a personal conversation I had with Cy. I was with him, I had been at the radio station a few years, and I whined to him about all the things that people were doing to get in my way of being successful. And as I hinted a little earlier, Cy was a great golfer. He was one of the first people to ever have a phone of his own at Moonbrook. They made him put one in his locker because he was there so much and was doing business calls all the time. But he loved the game of golf. And after I was done complaining about all the people at the radio station, he said, "You know, this is really like golf." He said, "It's really between you and the game." So what all the other players did was incidental to what I was really trying to do for my own work and my own career. So I always valued that a great deal. My particular background in radio, my father did this business for many years before I was in it. And so I kind of grew up in it, but I never had any of the skills. To be able to speak, to be able to write, to be able to present was always extremely difficult for me. So and still is in many regards, I'm still working on cultivating and perfecting some of the skills that are necessary to do this work. So when you have done this one step or half step or quarter step at a time, you have a different kind of experience than those people who walk in the door and know how to do it. So that's where my course came from. I have noted all of my own experience and I'm happy to share that with young people or anybody really who would like to present better to the public. And I would offer this to you, Becky or Kevin, anybody who, if you're hard up for a meeting sometime and your speaker cancels on you, I would be happy to come back here and share with you some of the things that I have learned about what makes effective speech and presentation for radio, if it would be of value to you in your professional work or anything that you are doing, because there's some definite things that I could impart, I hope, that might be of value to you, and I'd be happy to share them with you at some time. I've really talked away the hour here, but I would be happy to take a few questions or comments if anyone would like to give some. And I will stop the screen sharing, Kevin, and give the show back to you.
Any questions for Dennis?
I'll
Dennis?
give one or two. Dennis, I'm not going to sing the song, but the Dunnigans were one of the local teams on the radio, and they were delightful. Probably at my young age, I didn't think they were so delightful. But you grew up at a time when our local radio gave news broadcasts up until 11 o'clock, and a lot of local playing of local programs and programming. So it was a wonderful time for you to be in radio. And I don't know, Sue and I appreciate greatly growing up with you on the radio. So we cherish you as kind of like a Jamestown thing.
Thank you very much. You know, we still work very hard to put out a quality news product at WJTN, and many other radio stations just dropped it entirely. But it is because it is real and local, and involves people on the street or on the Zoom and in the newsroom writing and on the phone. It's an expensive part of the product. And so it's one of the hardest parts to maintain, but we continue, you know, that tradition which we started decades back with Cy and George and all of those people is still very meaningful to those of us who work there today. And so we don't want to abandon it. And fortunately, the Media One Group in Cleveland, Jim and Brusha, our current owner, has also expressed a commitment to that and allows us to continue to invest what are today limited resources in being able to do that.
Dennis, I was going to ask you about your father, and did he teach you anything about the radio, or how was he involved in your career?
Well, my father died when I was very young. I was 18. And so I didn't really, and while I had worked at the radio station a little bit before his death, I didn't really have the opportunity to share much with him about the skills and arts of radio. But what was a real blessing to me was in my youth, and my brother and I was a little older than I remember this fondly. The radio station was in the Hotel Jamestown for many years up until Valentine's Day 1970 or 71, I guess. And to have been around that hotel and to watch the place work at that time and what radio was like in that era was really a great gift to me. And I have very powerful, profound memories and influences from that time. But yeah, my dad was a great announcer. He was a natural. He had a beautiful, deep baritone voice and extraordinary skill in presenting with very little training and just extremely effective. I mean, witness the following, he's been dead since 1972. And there are still people within the last month who recall to me his success as a radio announcer in our community. And that's an extraordinary legacy to have. That's the BPU calling at $90 I owe you, Becky.
Hey, this is Vince. Dennis, I just have to say, I moved back here in 1998, but I really considered you the megaphone for so many people in Chautauqua County, whether it was those young readers, Young Readers Digest, whether it was the a cappella choir, there you were recording that at our Rotary annual celebration, and then, presenting it on the radio, or whether it's all of the fundraisers you supported. As a member of the United Way now, but all the not-for-profits, everybody's raising money for something, whether it was the Breakfast Club or whatever. And you always said to me, and I doubt it was just me, you're always welcome to this microphone. And I think you made this community, you were the megaphone that allowed this community to be a community. And I congratulate you for that. And I thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Vince, but I'm just the next in a long line of people who've done that. I mean, Jim Roselli was a master at that, now, deceased several years, but we all up there today. Learned a lot in the school of Roselli just by watching him work and knowing of his care and dedication to the community and countless organizations. So we've just inherited that legacy and that mission, if you will.
I just wanted to say I had the privilege of working with you, Dennis, for a few years up there. I don't pretend to have as much history as any of you guys do, but it was a wonderful place to work and wonderful people to work. And you said something to me one time, which is probably not true every day, but you said to me that you were surprised that, the way you said it was that you couldn't imagine working someplace in an industry that you didn't love. And so I'm so thankful, and I think the rest of the community is too as well, for your heart and dedication to what you do, realizing that it's not always busy and it's a changing market, but you're still there, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Well, thank you very much, Sherry, and I enjoyed those years that you were at the radio station with us. It was a great time of transition and a lot of excitement and anticipation and unknowns in that era. I have been captivated by this whole idea since my youth of being able to sit in one place and speak and have somebody hear it in another. That's just a very simple idea, but one that I have always marveled at and still do.
We're lucky that you do enjoy it as much as you do when you do, because we've benefited from that.
Dennis, I think some may know you and I have, we've been friends most of our life. We have, growing up together, and
we've been on the same pew for years.
Yes, we have. And certainly we've shared a lot professionally. To echo off what Vince said, I can't say enough for everything you've done for the community. I have to mention 4-H because that is something that's been always extremely special in my heart, and you have done so much to help that 4-H. I have such a strong belief in that program and everything it does for youth development, and I want to thank you for that, as well as everything you've done to help us through COVID. I mean, you kept us up to date on the local scene. Couldn't ask for anything more, but thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Randy. I appreciate that, and I have great respect and devotion to the 4-H. This time, this COVID-19 time, has been unlike any other for us in the radio business, as well as for all of you. I mean, it is no different for us, and everything has become a story, whether it happens, good news, or it doesn't happen, or it's happening in a changed way. All of the things we took for granted about our community are suddenly new again, and finding ways to present all of that and keep it going and find the energy and the resources to do it has been, all of that has been a significant challenge for us. But yeah, we continue to go at it. And I've talked a lot about the past with you here today, but I try not to dwell on it most of the time, because when you have a lot of history with an organization or a business, you can just kind of settle back into the reverie of the good old times. And I don't like to do that very much, because I'm always interested in where the next story is and the next good interview and tomorrow's broadcast. And that's really more important at the moment than any of yesterday's.
I congratulate you, Dennis, on your ability to educate. I don't think I've ever spoken with you in an interview or any kind of PR that somehow you didn't translate it to a learning experience for the people on the other side of the radio. I remember when you came to the power plant, and we walked through in the middle of the night, and you learned just about everything there was to learn about the power plant. That great big building that everybody drives by and nobody knows what's going on, and you made a yeoman's effort to transfer that knowledge and that feeling to the rest of the community. And you do that consistently, whether it's talking about raising beef cattle for the kids at the fair, the Dairy Princess and what she has to go through to be selected. And it really, you feel like you've learned something when you've heard Dennis.
Well, thank you very much, Sue. I try to put meat on the bone of the broadcast, you know. And the other thing I will say to you quickly is that, as I sort of suggested earlier, I was ill-suited for this business to begin with. I'm a very shy, introverted person. And the need to be able to have to go out and do all of these things, I mean, those skills I learned very, very slowly and with a great pain. And I probably would have been a researcher or, you know, some kind of lecturer someplace had it not been the fact that my father had been in this business and I had become captivated by it from the time that I was very young. So I worked very hard at being able to accomplish those things that you said, and I hope that I've been at least successful in some of them. That day that you recall, for those who, this was within the last 15 years, can't put it yet, but the entire town went dark. There was a blow up, some circuit blew up in front of the train station and the entire town went dark. And we knew it was dark. I got in my car and started driving down toward the Board of Public Utilities. There was no light on in town. And I got to the building, and it would not be like this today, I know. There's much different security, but I walked to that door that says Carlson Power Plant. It was open. This is 4:30 in the morning. And I walked upstairs because there was a staircase and I didn't know where I was going. And there I am in the control room. Unfortunately, Sue was there. And even at the BPU, local and me, you know, known to the community, I don't think I could get away with that today. But you guided me through, pulled me aside and guided me through all what had happened when that major outage occurred. And it was a memorable time for my reporting career. And to thank Sue for not throwing me off the balcony up there. Becky, I couldn't do that today, could I?
You're on mute, Becky.
If you came to the door and rang the bell, they would bring you to me, I think, or me to you. I
At
think
4:30 in the morning? Well.
Probably. I wondered what your coverage is going to be like tomorrow night for the election.
Well, our focus has shifted over the years from election night to more the day after. So we're putting an intense focus on connecting with those people who've won local elections for Wednesday morning. We will do some things tomorrow night in a mix of coverage from ABC, our radio network, and what we can gather locally. Two things, you know, COVID-19 in particular there aren't headquarters like there used to be. Sometimes there are small private parties, but I don't even know if there'll be that tomorrow. If so, they're going to be very private and you know, secluded because of issues related to crowd size and the spread of a vicious disease. So we're not going to have a lot of people out in the field. And Vote Chautauqua really has changed all of that. I mean, the need to go to the Board of Elections and to do this sort of moment by moment radio coverage of vote totals is unnecessary today, because after 9 o'clock tomorrow night, Vote Chautauqua will do it as capably and as fast as anything that we could have ever done in that other era. Kevin, I guess we're done. That's it, Fort Pitt. We got them. I enjoyed as much of this. No.
Well, thank you, Dennis, for your time. As you may be aware, a donation to Polio Plus Fund will be made in your honor to help eradicate polio around the world.
Thank you very much.
This close. Appreciate your time. I can echo all the sentiments you've heard and thanks and praise. You know, personally, from our time on the, you know, with the Jamestown High School musicals to rowing to anything else that, you know, we cross paths with. And so, you know, again, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of this today. And I'd be happy to come back at last minute anytime you want me to do that other piece.
You be careful with those words. Becky's written down a couple dates already.
You just let me know, Becky.
Okay.
Have a
Next
good day, everybody.
will be Betsy Mirando from Basari Foods. Remember, Rotary opens opportunities. What opportunities will you see to make our community a better place? With that, thank you. Have a great week. We are adjourned.
Thank you.